Shavua Tov, a gute Woche, and welcome to our program. On Friday, Mi'el Hashem, it's going to be Beis Iyel Lechatchila Alibel, the birthday of the Rebbe Malash. And the Rebbe says many times that for all of those that have a connection with the Rebbe Malash, Beis Iyel is not only the birthday of the Rebbe Malash, it's also their own birthday. And Beis Iyel stands for Tiferes Shebetiferes and Lechatchila Alibel. The Rebbe in this Sikha says that what we find in concerning Beis Iyel, and that has to do with Anosi, and he brings the Rashi in Chumash in Chukas as Hanosi hu Hakel, and the Rebbe Malash was the Nosi, and whoever has a connection as mentioned, then it's not only the birthday of the Rebbe Malash, it's also their birthday. And the limud of Beis Iyel is Lechatchila Alibel. And the saying of the Rebbe Malash is, as die Welt sagt, man kann nicht herunter, geht man herüber. If you can't go down, you go over. Und ihr sagt, says the Rebbe Malash, Lechatchila Alibel, you go over from the start. And the Rebbe asks a question here. If the Rebbe Malash wanted to tell us that we should conduct ourselves in a form of Lechatchila Alibel, you should have said that in everything we do, we should do Lechatchila Alibel. Why did they have to say, Die Welt sagt, als man kann nicht herunter, geht man Alibel? The world says, what importance is that? What is important is what we should do, not what the world says. And the Rebbe explains here that the reason the Rebbe said it in this form is to tell us that we are cognizant of the world. We know what the world says. And we know there's a sfoda in the world. There's a school of thought. As me kennet darunter geht man herüber. If you can't go down, if you're not going to make it by going down, then you go over. Which means there is a concept of doing it in a way of going down. In other words, not over the top. You start by going down. If it doesn't work. But the Rebbe Malash says, no. I'm cognizant of the fact that there is such a concept, and there is such a philosophy, and there is such a way of life. But I am saying, Lechatchila Alibel. It's interesting, Rabbi, and it was mentioned by Chassidim Verbringens. You hear the tapes of the Rebbe, and you hear the Rebbe talking about what the Rebbe Malash said. And generally, and when something like this, the Rebbe Malash sagt, die Welt sagt, man kann nicht herunter, geht man herüber. Und ich sage, und der Rebbe Malash sagt, und ich sage, und der Rebbe Malash sagt, die Welt sagt, man kann nicht herunter, geht man herüber. Und ich sage, and in other words, it was a lot of words. It sounded for a moment, for the one who doesn't know, that the Rebbe got entangled in his own words, and that he was looking for words. Let me tell you, Rabbi say, our Rebbe didn't get entangled in anything. Everything was clear. He wasn't looking for words. What came out of this is, und ich sag Lechatchila Alibel. The Rebbe wanted to say to us that we should understand, if we want to understand, that the Rebbe of Lechatchila Alibel is our Rebbe. How many times did the Rebbe Malash say Lechatchila Alibel? Difficult to know. You're not going to find it in the Maimorim of the Rebbe Malash. You're not going to find it in the Sichos of the Rebbe Malash. They're Maimorim and Sichos. You're not going to find it there. It says one place in a letter of the previous Rebbe that Rebbe Malash said. So if he said it one time. How many times did our Rebbe say Lechatchila Alibel? I don't think we can count how many times. So the Rebbe Lechatchila Alibel is our Rebbe. And this is why the Rebbe says over here in this way, where he repeats himself to the one who doesn't know, und ich sag, that I am the one who is saying Lechatchila Alibel. So we have to understand we have that connection. Now, and the Rebbe here explains exactly the details of what Lechatchila Alibel means. We will return to that in a moment, but first, our customary story. I heard the story from a Jew at the Ehel just a few weeks ago. I was at the Ehel, and it seemed to me that this is a Jew with a long, white beard, with a special hat. It seemed to me that this is a Jew that may have a story. So I walked over to him and I asked him, Shalom Aleichem, and Baruch Hashem, it worked. So he says to me, he has a story with the Rebbe, lives in Williamsburg or in Borough Park. He says, the Rebbe made my Shiduch. And as he's talking to me, he calls over from Cheder Sheni, he calls over his wife. She was there with him. And he wants to tell the story in front of his wife. And he tells the story that his father-in-law, with his wife, when she was single, went into Yechidus to the Rebbe. He was not a Lubavitcher Chosid, but he had a connection. So he gives the Rebbe a zettel, a kvittel, as he called it. And there were 3 Shiduchim for this daughter. There was number 1, number 2, number 3. He says, my name was the 3rd one. The Rebbe many times at Yechidus, as it's known, he would take a pencil and he would make some marks on the zettel with his pencil. The Rebbe took the pencil and he circled his name, and his name was the 3rd one, not the 1st and not the 2nd, the 3rd. And then he turns to his father, to his future father-in-law, and he says to him, why do we have to look for a Shiduch? One Shiduch was from Eretz Yisrael, another Shiduch was from Europe. Why do you have to look so far? This Shiduch is much closer. He was in South America. And the would-be bride, the Kala, says to the Rebbe, but Nitodo, he's not here. So the Rebbe says, so he'll be here next week. And then he concludes the story. Baruch Hashem, we got married. And we have children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And this was 52 years ago. As I told you, I heard the story just a few weeks ago at the Ehel from the Jew with whom it happened, and he called over his wife that she should listen and she should be part of the story. That's our Rebbe. Rabbi say, mentioned before about Lachatchila Rebbe in this Sikha, and this is from Shabbos Pashas Gedeshim, the 2nd day of the Chodesh Iyar in the year of Shimem Tes. And then the Rebbe says like this. A Rebbe means it's a movement that goes without measures, that goes from the top over. And the Rebbe says, and that means that even if yesterday his anhoge was Lachatchila Rebbe, but yesterday was yesterday, today is another day, then today it has to be Lachatchila Rebbe, even in connection with yesterday. And tomorrow would be Lachatchila Rebbe, even in connection of today, and so on and so forth. And now, and this becomes Aharo B'chaim Ve'ad B'li Gvul, and it goes without measure. In other words, it goes up and up and up without measure. Lachatchila means that even if the matzav today is not the best, but even in today's matzav we go over the top. And although there is a school of thought that says we have to go alunter, and we are cognizant of that, we're not saying we don't know about it. We know about it. And therefore we say it. But we say it, we know about it, but we don't accept it. We don't accept it at all. And therefore it has to go l'chatchila Rebbe. And the Rebbe explains that this concept of going l'chatchila Rebbe has to do with the date of the birthday of the Rebbe Marash, which is Beizir. And Beizir is the Sfira of Tiferes Shebetiferes. This Thursday night is the Sfira of Tiferes Shebetiferes, and Friday is Beizir. And the Rebbe explains what does Tiferes Shebetiferes means. It means the ultimate in beauty, Tiferes Shebetiferes. And he brings that it says in Sforim of Kabbalah and Sforim of Chassidus, and the Rebbe brings this Sforim. It's brought in Lekutei Torah and so on. That Tiferes is a sphera that goes from all the way down till all the way up. What's meant all the way up? It says that it's Eile Ad HaKeser. It goes till the highest sphere of Keser. Not all spheres go up to Keser. Tiferes goes up to Keser, and on the other hand, it goes down into this world. In other words, this is Tiferes. Shebet Tiferes is something that goes through, that transcends all the spheres. And this is what the Alter, and this was the Hanhoge of the Rebbe Marash. That on the other hand, on the one hand, it was in a form of higher than Medida v'Hakbola, higher than limitations. On the other hand, it was part of this world. In other words, it's not that the Hanhoge should be in a way where everything was out of this world, higher than this world. The Rebbe Marash lived within this world, and within this world he brought in a conduct that's l'mayla miderech hateva. And the Rebbe explains that this has to do with the month of Iyar. Iyar is called in scripture in Tanakh, it's called Chedesh Hasheni, the second one. What does the second one mean? After the Rishon. Which is the Rishon? The Rishon is Nisan. Nisan is Anhoga Nisis, which means a conduct which is higher than nature. That's Nisan. And the Rebbe brings the Rashi, and that Nisan means Nisim Harbe. A lot of Nisim. But after Nisan is Iyar. Iyar is already the month where everything is in order. Everything is in order, and that's the second month. Not the first month, it's the second month. Now, which day in Nisan we don't say Tachnun? Which day from the Chedesh Nisan until we go back into this world and we start saying Tachnun? You guessed. It's not Aleph Iyar. Aleph Iyar you don't say Tachnun. Aleph Iyar is the Chedesh. The first day is Beis Iyar. Beis Iyar is when we take everything, the Anhoga Nisis, and we implement that Anhoga into this world. And the first day of doing that is Beis Iyar. When we take all the greatness, all the L'mayla Mederech HaTeva, all the Anhoga Nisis of Nisan, and we implement it into part of this world. And that was the Rebbe Marash. And this is what the Rebbe is saying to each one of us. And the Rebbe here explains that when the Rebbe created the world, it was right away l'chatchila Rebbe. He created with the word Beis. And there's a question. Beis is the second letter, it's not the first. It should have been with Aleph. And Beis stands for Belocha. And therefore, l'chatchila Rebbe. We skipped the Aleph and we went straight to the Belocha. So this is how the Rebbe created the world. And not only that, the Rebbe says, right, the posuk after that, it says, V'ruach Elokim b'lachefes al pnei hamoyim. The Spirit of God hovered over the waters. And I'll just say, it's a medrash in Bereshis Rabbah, Ze ruchi shel melech HaMoshiach. This is the spirit of Mashiach. And the question is, the spirit of Mashiach, what is it doing at the beginning of time? But the Rebbe is first creating the world. Mashiach is going to be at the end of the days, not now. Now we're first creating the world. Now we have to create a world for 6,000 years, and after that there is going to be the ultimate is going to be Mashiach. So how does Shiduch shel Melech HaMashiach get in here? We're creating the world now. The answer is, das is l'chatchila aribel. We are told l'chatchila aribel that this is the purpose, and the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, this is the purpose. You want to know why Almighty God created heavens and earth? The answer is for the coming of Mashiach. And it's and that's what the Gemara says, Shiduch shel Melech HaMashiach. And that is the concept of l'chatchila aribel. The Rebbe once explained by Fabring also the end of the Teile l'chatchila aribel. Why? Because the last posuk is l'cholo eises v'hamevsim asher also meishe le'enei kol Yisrael. Eises v'mevsim are anhogonisis, signs and wonders that Moshe Rabbeinu did, all the great miracles. But where did Moshe Rabbeinu do them, and how did he do them? That everybody should see them. So there was a combination of both worlds, of the great world of miracles, but it was in a way that everybody was able to see them. As we saw in Mitzrayim, we were able to see the miracles. So the beginning of the Torah is L'chatchila Ariba, the end of the Torah is L'chatchila Ariba. And this is the concept, and this is the message to each person, that he has a connection with the Rebbe Marash. And the Rebbe Marash is the Rebbe of L'chatchila Ariba. And it's next Friday. Next Thursday night is the Sfila of L'chatchila Ariba. And Beis Year is next Friday. So everybody has a connection with the Rebbe Marash and with L'chatchila Ariba in his own life, or in her own life. So it's not only that the Rebbe Marash himself conducted himself that way. This is the message of the Rebbe Marash to each person. Otherwise, the Rebbe Marash wouldn't say it. For himself, he didn't have to say he didn't have to say anything. Then he could have conducted himself whichever way he wanted. But he said it. And the Rebbe repeats it to us in case we didn't understand it the first time. And in case we didn't understand it the first time, the Rebbe repeats it again. And if we still didn't understand, he repeats it again. And if we still had some problems understanding, the Rebbe repeats it as many times as we need, until our Nefesh Abamis understands it, in our language, in the language that we speak. Whether it's Yiddish, or it's English, or it's another Loshen, Shivim Loshen, until we understand. But the Rebbe wants us to understand. And he says that the Rebbe of L'chatchila Ariba is our Rebbe. And he is teaching us. We should only learn. We should only learn, and we will get there. He's giving us the ingredients to get there. And together in Eifon von L'chatchila Ariba, and together in Eifon von Tiferes Shebetiferes. And the Rebbe once said, when they get to Moshiach, that's exactly how Moshiach is going to come. With all the preparations, and with all the screaming, want Mashiach now, when he comes, it will be L'chatchila Ariba. 1 second we're going to be in Golus, and next second will be the Gula Amitis V'Ashlemo. And into the simple mind, that's not always easy to understand. In one moment, there's going to be a big transformation from Golus, from Gelo Ligeulo. The answer is that's the concept of L'chatchila Ariba that we are waiting for. And our generation is that generation that is going to see Yemir Tashem. Die Geula Amitis V'Ashlemo in der Eifung von L'chatchila Ariba, Gesundheit und Fröhlichkeit. Oba Golo Didan, over Simcha, over Tuvel Livov, over Teva Nirve Anigle, over Lamato Me'asodot Fochim, over Chesed, over Rachamim, V'Teikev, Umiyad, Mamesh.